Good afternoon and welcome to the Eastside Recovery Hub Financial Webinar Series hosted by One Redmond. My name is Christina Hudson and I am the Executive Director, and I will also be your moderator for today. We know that there are many businesses that are looking for a pathway to recovery, and financial resources is a critical element to that process. All our Eastside cities and chambers are partnered together to give you the highest level of support. Before we begin, I want to cover a few housekeeping notes. If you need technical help during the webinar, please use the chat box. We have staff on hand to try and help with any issues that you might be experiencing. We also will have links to pertinent documents in that chat box that you can access. The tools that we will have here will also be available on our website, eastsiderecoveryhub.com. If you have questions for the speakers, please use the Q&A box. We will do our very best to get these questions answered by our speakers. Since we have hundreds of people on this webinar, we know we can't get to everyone during this hour. If we don't get to your questions, don't worry. Our staff will go through all the unanswered questions after the program and work to get answers to all the participants as soon as we can. This webinar is also being recorded. We will send out a link as soon as it's ready. We know that many business owners are seeking guidance, and we are hoping to help you navigate through all the information as we know it today. However, this is still a dynamic process. The federal government is still working out the processes and procedures during these unprecedented times. So all the content you will hear on this webinar is accurate as of today. So let's get going with our program. Today we are covering the Paycheck Protection Program. This information is geared towards small businesses, corporations, LLCs, and S-Corps. For reference, we will also be hosting another program next week for independent contractors or gig workers around the programs available through the CARES Act, which will include the Paycheck Protection Program and unemployment benefits. Today, we have Linda Laws, Janie Sacco, and Eric Scroggins. Linda Laws is Supervisory Lender Relations Specialist from the U.S. Small Business Administration in the Seattle District Office. Next, we have Janie Sacco, First Vice President at U.S. Metro Bank. She is a 30-year veteran in SBA lending. And finally, we have Eric Scroggins, Vice President, Bank Manager at Banner Bank. And I believe we have our first speaker. Was Linda able to make it? Oh, great, perfect, Linda. We were having some technical difficulties, so we're back on our regular schedule. Okay, so now I'd like to introduce Linda Laws, Supervisory Lender Relations Specialist for the U.S. Small Business Administration.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me here today. I'm going to talk a little bit about just an overview of our Paycheck Protection Program and our EIDL program. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. This loan program the Paycheck Protection Program provides loan forgiveness for retaining employees by temporarily expanding the traditional SBA 7A loan program. So you might wonder, who can apply? The following entities can apply: any small business concern that meets the SBA size standards. Either the industry is based on a NAICS code, or you will have 500 or less employees that meet the size standards. Any business with a NAICS code that begins with 72 accommodations and food services that has more than one physical location, and employees less than 500 also qualify. Sole proprietors, independent contractors, and self-employed persons also. I'm sorry. Sorry, having some technical difficulties here. I'm sorry.
Would you want to go ahead and we can flip to the next speaker if you need us?
No, I lost track. I'll get back on track here. Sorry. So the Paycheck Protection Program was designed to provide a direct incentive for small businesses to keep their workers on payroll. And SBA will forgive loans if all employees are kept on the payroll for 8 weeks, and the money is used for payroll, rent, mortgage, interest, or utilities. You can apply through existing 7A lenders or through any federally insured depository institution, federally insured credit union, and farm credit system institutions that are participating. Other regulated lenders will be available to make these loans once they are approved and enrolled in the program. And you can consult with your local lender as to whether or not it's participating in the program. Our lenders began processing loans April 3rd in the Paycheck Protection Program, and they will be available through June 30th. So I guess the kind of the nuts and bolts of the PPP, it needs to be used for payroll, and it's up to $2 million. It has a 1% interest rate, and there is 75% of the loan may be forgivable. You just want to make sure that you keep track of all your receipts for payroll and any other expenses you might have. The other program that we have currently is the EIDL program. In that program, we can go up to $10 million. It is a loan, and it has a 3.75% interest rate, and it is available for, again, all small businesses that qualify based on their NAICS code or the number of employees that they have. So that kind of, in a nutshell, is the two programs. If you need more information about it, you can go to sba.gov/coronavirus, and they'll show you there where the funding options are.
All right, thank you, Linda. Next up is Janie Sacco, First Vice President at U.S. Metro Bank.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to clarify one thing. Linda, on the disaster loan, that's the one with the 2 million cap, right? And the PPP
Correct, the EIDL
is the 10 million, right?
10 million, yes.
Okay, just to clarify, because I thought I heard it the other way. So, okay, let's go ahead and get started. Let's advance the slide. Okay, so what I'm going to cover here relatively quickly is who's eligible, each section of the application document, so you know how to complete it accurately, examples of how to calculate your average monthly payroll, how to determine the number of jobs, when an addendum A and when an addendum B is needed, how to respond to questions 1 through 4, and the form changed a little bit, so the responding to questions 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then the certifications, required signatures, some miscellaneous program information, and what documents are needed by the lender. Next slide. As Linda indicated, the question becomes, is your business eligible? Well, your business is eligible, as Linda indicated, if you have 500 or fewer employees whose principal place of residence is the United States. Or if your business operates in certain industries and meets the applicable SBA employee-based size standards for that industry, you may also be eligible. So what I'm telling people to do is to check with your business lender for eligibility under this standard if for some reason you do not meet the 500 or fewer employee issue. Okay? And then the other issue is that your business had to be in operation as of February 15th, 2020. Next slide. This is the top of the application document. So what I would like you to see is to check 1, the SBA revised this section, and so please just check the type of legal entity you are. Okay, so this particular program has opened up to a lot more types of entities than prior, so it's a little bit unique. But what I'm going to cover today specifically is related to partnerships, corporations, and all types of LLCs. Next slide. So what we're going to do is disregard that first comment because it's no longer relevant based on the revision to the form. When you're completing the section for your company's information, if you want to verify what trade names you have for your company, you can go to dor.wa.gov, click on the look up a business, enter your business name, and then it'll show you all of your legal entity names, or excuse me, legal entity name and your trade names. Okay? Now, one of the documents that we need you to supply us is called a W-3. This is an example. And there are 2 boxes that are predominant on this that you'll need to gather your information from and your lender will verify from. And that is what's circled, the wages, tips, and other compensation in box 1. And then on, as you look to your left, you'll see box C with the total number of forms of W-2s. In this case, this client of mine has 55 employees at the end of, 55 W-2s. So I would ask her to validate how many employees she had at the end of the year, because some employees may have left, some employees may have stayed. So that C is not always the accurate number for the number of employees, but it is a start for a lender to validate some of these numbers from. Next slide. So there are several ways to calculate your loan amount, and it's all based on the average monthly payroll. So we're going to go over some examples. So again, please refer to your 2019 W-3 document if you were open with your business at that time. Take the number in box 1 and divide it by the number of months you were in operation in 2019. This is your average monthly payroll. Again, if you were not in operation 12 months for last year, then just divide your total payroll number by the number of months you were in operation. You then multiply the average monthly payroll by 2.5. This is your base loan amount. And again, it assumes no employees were paid more than $100,000 annually. All employees reside in the United States, and your business does not have a disaster or economic injury disaster loan. Next slide. Example number 2 is if you have employees or independent contractors who made more than $100,000 annually in 2019. For right now, the rules are that you take the W-3 box number 1 amount, and for each employee who is compensated over $100,000, deduct the amount of the compensation over $100,000 from box number 1, that number, and then divide by the number of months you were in operation in 2019 to determine your average monthly payroll. Then again, you take that calculation of average monthly payroll, multiply it by 2.5. Again, this is your loan amount for the base. Example 3. Next. In example 3, and this is why I keep saying your base, if you received an economic injury disaster loan between January 31st, 2020 through the date of your application, you need to adjust your calculation. So what you do is you take your calculated loan amount and add the amount of your economic injury disaster loan. And then you subtract any amount of the advance under that IDL program. And it's generally either going to be $10,000 or $25,000 depending on how much you received as an advance prior to this loan. Okay. When you do all of these calculations, that result is your loan amount. So again, you take your calculated 2 times average monthly payroll, and then you add your idle loan amount net of the advance you received. All right, that is your loan amount. Next. So example number 4, I have a lot of clients who I'm working with that just started business this year. So if your business began in 2020, what you need to do is add up all of your payroll for January and February, and then divide that by 2. This is the resulting number is your average monthly payroll, and then you multiply that by 2.5 times. And then that is your loan amount. And again, if you received an idle between January 31st up to April 3rd, then you do the other adjustment of adding the idle amount and deducting the advance amount you received. So that's how you calculate your loan amount. And then what you need to do is put your number of employees on the form. So for your number of jobs. And what I would recommend that you do is you can use the number noted in C, that box on C for your W-3, if it is accurate for the number of employees. But if you made staffing changes last year or staffing changes this year, then write the number of employees you had on staff as of February 15th, 2020. Next slide. As we go down through the application, what you have here is the ownership, and they only have 2 lines. So clearly, if you have more than 2 owners who own more than 20% of the business, just add a separate sheet and list the same information, owner name, title as it's in your articles of incorporation or formation, or in your bylaws or operating agreement. The ownership percentage for the individual, their personal tax identification number, social security number, and then their primary residential address. So again, here's where you may actually have to add a sheet. Okay. Next. Next slide. So for questions 1 through 4, you're going to either mark them yes or no as applicable. So you just look at what they are. Most people are not debarred or disallowed from using the SBA program. And if you are, you would know it. So most of the time you're going to be answering number 1 as no. If the applicant has an SBA guarantee loan from or any other type of federal loan from another federal agency, and you're in default or you're currently delinquent, and or it's resulted in a loss to the government, then answering yes to number 1 or number 2 will result in the loan not being approved. So you have to be really careful when you're answering these questions and making sure you're answering them appropriately with either the yes or no. So I encourage you to read them thoroughly. For number 3, if you answer yes, then what you're going to need to do is to create an addendum A. There is no form addendum A. You're just manually creating it. And what you need to do is put each owner's name, the business name that they're active in, their title, and their ownership percentage. Because the SBA and the lender want to know about affiliated businesses to make sure that they're collecting the appropriate information and understand the overall relationships that you have. And under this program, again, the aggregate affiliated debt that the SBA is allowing is $10 million. So if you have more than one entity, each entity can apply for a PPP loan, but the aggregate debt of all of your related businesses cannot exceed $10 million under all of the SBA programs that are out there. All right. On number 4, this is where we're going to validate if you have obtained an EIDL loan between January 31st and April 3rd of this year. And if the answer is yes, then what I would encourage you to do is create your addendum B and put the legal entity name, the authorization number for the EIDL, and then the account number and the dollar amount. That way it's all identified, and that will link back to how you have calculated your loan amount in the first section that we covered. Okay, but keep in mind the key word is received. It is not applied for. So you have to, again, read these questions with a good critical eye and make sure that you're answering them properly. All right, next slide. All right, so for these questions in this section, what I want you to remember is you're not only answering yes or no, but you also have to initial as indicated by the arrow. So number 5, if you have had criminal activity that you have been and actually have any kind of arraignment or indictment, formal charges, then you do need to answer yes. If within the last 5 years you've had any felony where or you've been convicted, pled guilty, pled nolo contendere, been placed on pretrial diversion, or any form of parole or probation, okay, then you're going to have to answer yes and initial. Again, if you get yes answers for 5 or 6, then the loan will not be approved. If you are answering no, you still need to initial next to the line for question 5 and 6 where the arrows are. And then you do have to validate if the United States is your principal place of residence for all the employees included in the payroll calculation above for the number of employees and the dollar amount. And then they would like to know if you are a franchise and if that franchise is in the SBA's directory. So again, yes or no, just remember 5 and 6, if the answers are yes, the loan will not be approved. Next slide. Okay, and now we're going to go, this is page number 2 of the application document, and it is a certification document. I'm going to back up for just a second. On the first page, if you have multiple owners, each one of those owners is going to have to respond to numbers 5 and 6. So what I would do is if you have more than one owner in your company, just create additional pages of number 1 and have everybody go through and respond yes or no, and then do the appropriate initials. Okay. Next. We're back to page 2. On this one, again, each owner must initial the certifications if they own more than 20% or more of the company. And then at the bottom, you have a signature of authorized representative of applicant, and you have to put the date, the title, and print the name right down at the bottom. Generally, in your bylaws or your operating agreement, what you're going to have in there is which title and who is responsible for being authorized to indebt the company. And generally, it's to pledge collateral. On this PPP loan, they are not taking collateral, so that's not as germane. But your organization documents do need to identify who is authorized to indebt the company. If you have more than one person required to sign on loan documents, and sometimes it's 2 are required, sometimes it's 3, depending on the number of owners you have in the company. You need to make sure that you create enough pages where each one of them can sign on this document, providing authorization to do so. Next. So Linda covered a little bit of this information. The interest rate on this loan is 1%. It does have a 2-year maturity. An eligible borrower may only receive 1 PPP loan. All the PPP loans must be made on or before June 30th of this year. You will not have to make payments for 6 months following the date of the loan. However, interest will accrue during that time. And the part that is unforgiven, that will be paid over a 2-year period of time. So what I'm encouraging everyone to do is to be very aware of using this loan, the loan proceeds, at least 75% for payroll expenses. That way the loan can be forgiven. So eligible uses of the proceeds outside of the payroll costs are: you can make interest payments on your commercial real estate mortgage, but no principal reduction. You can do rent payments, utility payments, and again, interest payments are allowed on other debt incurred before February 15th, 2020. So you really have to pay attention to the dates and make sure you're complying. But again, when you are using these loan proceeds, please keep very good track and a record of how those funds are dispersed, so that you can evidence at the end that 75% at a minimum of the loan proceeds are being used for payroll expenses, so that you're not having to worry about having a balance left over and you get your debt forgiven. Okay. Again, the other allowed use of the proceeds is refinancing an idle loan made between January 31st and up to April 3rd. And I put the April 3rd in there. Really, it's when you're applying for this loan, and we've gone round and round about this, but when you're applying for the PPP loan, if you have been in application for an idle, and you're going to have to make a determination about what you want to do with that idle loan. So I'm going to leave it with that. I think that is the last slide. Oh, no, it isn't. The needed documents. I always forget about this one. The needed documents. Okay, for lenders processing this, what we really want to have is a complete PPP application form. I would encourage you to also provide your W-3 and your W-2s for 2019. That way we can go through and verify what we need to verify as far as residency of your employees. And for right now, the $100,000 cap on payroll. And then even if you have borrowed from your commercial lender in the past, to make it easy and efficient for them, I would encourage you to provide your organization documents again as part of this package so that they can make sure that they have all of the current documents related to your organization. So for a limited liability company, it's a certificate of formation, your business license, your articles of formation, your operating agreement, and include any and all updates. And then on the corporation side, whether it's a sub S or C, you have a certificate of incorporation, your business license, articles of incorporation, your bylaws, and again, please include all updates for any changes that have been made to those documents over time by shareholder meeting minutes. And I think that one is the last slide. So thank you very much.
Great. Well, thank you, Janie. We appreciate it. And to continue on this topic, we go to Dr. Eric Scroggins, Vice President and Bank Manager at Banner Bank.
Hello, and thank you for including me today. That was all very helpful information that we've heard so far. I just wanted to say just a couple of brief things in relationship to kind of what's happening inside the banking world. First of all, as you can imagine, there are thousands of inquiries already in at banks, and it is an unprecedented amount of demand that is hitting the banking system all at once. And some banks have been, you've been hearing rumors, some people are funded already. There's been some banks that have used more of a manual processing system and have been able to get that process moving a little bit faster. Many of the banks have opted for automation of this process, and it has slowed the execution just a little bit. But from what I understand, myself and our colleagues in other banks, things are rolling pretty fast right now. And I wanted to say also that through the automation process, what business owners that I'm talking to are experiencing is a little bit of delay in communication. So I would like to say just be patient. The processes that you're inquiring with your SBA approved lender, you're entering into an inquiry queue. That information, your information is being put into an automated system at our company. It's DocuSign. It's generating an email out to you with the application and the required documentation to be uploaded. That is going back to SBA lenders that are reviewing and submitting and getting approval for your loan, sending back to you an automated email again with your loan agreement, and then funding within 24 to 48 hours after completing the promissory note. So it is taking some time. It is overwhelming in the banking world right now, and so I'd like to encourage everybody just to take a deep breath and relax and just trust your bankers. We are all working very hard to push these things through as fast as we possibly can. We do know that the impact on your business is great, and our hearts are going out to all the business owners that are experiencing trauma during this time. So that's about all I have for the mechanisms that kind of on the banking side. But I'd be willing to answer any questions that there might be.
Perfect and great. So we're going to go ahead and start our Q&A session with a question from Scott Hudson.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for all the information. I've heard a couple of different things, and we're getting ready to go through a shutdown, and I've heard companies are putting their employees on furlough, and they're still able to apply for this PPP. So I wasn't sure how that worked when the PPP is designed so companies don't put their employees on furlough or unemployment.
Hi, this is Linda Laws from the SBA. And it's my understanding that that's not a problem once they bring the employees back and they've applied for the loan, then that would be satisfactory.
Okay, so we've already applied for it, and
Right.
so you're saying once we receive the funds, then we need to bring our employees back?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I think this is Janie from US Metro. I think one of the things is we have to still comply with the governor mandate. So if your business is non-essential and you can't hire people back until May 5th or May 4th, however you want to look at it, I think that's still in compliance with the spirit of this. So it's not necessarily from the date you get the loan, but when you're going to be able to reopen. Is that correct, Linda?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you, Janie.
Thank you.
All right, our next question will be from Shirley Rake.
Hi. We're trying to deal with Wells Fargo Bank because that's where we have our accounts. And I got a notice from them, and it looked like they were suggesting that we go to other options to get our loan. I only have 13 employees, and I've been in business 16 years. And this is something that is really hurting us because our business has definitely slowed down in the Seattle area. So I'm just wondering, how do we go to another bank and get a loan, because we've just dealt with Wells Fargo because they're very close to our office?
This is Linda from the SBA. So is Wells Fargo the business who you typically bank with?
Yes.
Okay. So what I would recommend is we have a website, and I will send that to the facilitators of this meeting, where you can go out and actually find a lender by entering your zip code. And that's where I would ask you to start looking for other SBA appointed lenders.
Okay, I believe that one of your people, Margot, sent that to me. And when I went on it, it had 3 Wells Fargo sites, and it had a Banner Bank, which Banner is also very close to us. And when it was Viking, we did used to deal with them. But my bookkeeper called them, and they don't help anyone that does not have a checking account with them. So that seems to be what all the banks are doing, which I understand that, but doesn't help us right now.
This is Janie. I understand, because we're in a situation where I have a lot of people calling me, and for right now, with this first run at the PPP program, my institution is limiting us to existing customers. And I think I can give you a couple of financial institutions that are helping small business owners right now with this product.
Okay.
And one is KeyBank, and you do need to open a checking account, business checking account with them, and then
they'll let you do that now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And then one of my coworkers here, I'm housed in Renton, and one of my coworkers also in Renton used to work for a company out of New York. It's called Ready Capital, and they are accepting applications from non-customers as well.
Okay.
And the thing is about this particular product is that we should all be processing it functionally the same way, with the same no fees and everything. And Ready Capital is ReadyCapital.com. So
Okay.
if nothing else, you might want to, again, try staying local with Key if there's a branch near you. And
Right.
then if not, or if they are at their cap, then you could try Ready Capital. And
Okay.
there are a few other institutions that have capped and met their cap right now. And from what I understand, and Linda, correct me if I'm wrong, but does it sound, I've been hearing that there are going to be more issues of funds for this if the 394 billion is used up. Is that accurate?
That information is out there, and I've heard talk about it, but I haven't heard anything, specifically for sure. But I do know that there's conversations to that effect.
So could you tell me how we know if the banks have met their cap? Because your people have told me this, but when I talk to my bookkeeper and she's talked to the bank, she says they haven't put out any money yet. So how do they know they've met their cap?
Well, we have to get an SBA authorization number. And so when we're getting those as a lender, we know how much we have processed for our institution under a particular program. So we
Okay.
may not have gotten the money out to anybody yet, but we know how much we have processed for our institution.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay.
The other thing is that we are required to, once we get the SBA authorization, we're supposed to get that money out to you within like 5 business days. Is that accurate, Linda, still?
It is still accurate. I know there are conversations that may be changed, but for right now it is correct. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So what you have to realize is when we're overwhelmed, as Eric was saying, we've got a lot of volume of applications. And what we have to do is balance the document production with, when we get the authorization, with the document production, so that we're complying with the spirit of the product and getting everything out to our clients within that reasonable 5-day period of time. So you just picture people in the back room of a bank working as hard as they can to first get authorizations and the money set aside for your business as we're processing it. The clock starts ticking. We have to get documents done within that 5-day period of time. So you've got 2 components going on, and we just have to make sure that we balance everything and we're complying with what the SBA wants us to do.
Okay. Now she was told that we didn't require that the loan did not require any documentation, and I wrote down all the things that you said that we needed. So which one do we listen to?
Well, these loans are unsecured and
Right.
they are not personally guaranteed, but we do have to validate to a degree how we're doing the loan amount.
Okay.
And so by having that W-3 and by having the W-2s, we can go through and make sure that the loan amounts are correct. You as the borrower really are responsible for giving us accurate information from the get-go. But we should do a little bit of due diligence on that to make sure that the loan amounts are accurate so that you're not going to have a debt forgiveness problem on the back end of this, because that would be really horrible if you were anticipating having the debt forgiven and then because something went awry in the paperwork, you couldn't do that, right? Or not get all of it forgiven.
Right.
So we want to make sure that we're providing a very good service for you as SBA lenders. And part of that is looking at it. And like I say, we do need to have you sign loan documents. And so the documents, when we're creating them, we need to make sure that we are getting accurate signers on all the documents to indebt the company. And that's why I recommended putting the organization documents in with your application for the ease and speediness of your lender to get through the production process.
Oh, okay. So the application that we picked up from the SBA, doesn't have any of that on it, if I remember correctly. But we do have it all available. So each bank has their own, or institution has their own application form?
No, we're using, to Eric, I'm not speaking out of turn, but we're all using this borrower application form under the PPP program.
Yeah, that is accurate. Everything you described was exactly what I've seen come out for our organization as well. From what I understand, it's universal.
Okay, well, that's good.
And I do want to mention, we just put the SBA lenders site up.
I do want to say also that one of the things I want to say also is that we've been having a lot of people print the applications and bring documentation to the local branches. And from what I understand, most of this is, the large majority of this is going automated. So your local branch is probably not going to be able to receive anything from you.
Right, they've told her that it all has to be done through email or the technology system somehow.
That's right.
Yes. Okay. I appreciate your help very much. It's wonderful talking to all of you.
And we have another question I'm going to read from Denise Brown. How can we get clarification on whether the 8 weeks start from the date of the loan or the date that the stay-at-home order is lifted? Our lender indicated that the 8 weeks starts on the day the loan is funded, whether we can reopen or not. Is that true?
Jeannie, are you familiar with that?
Well, what I'm going to say is when the loan is funded is kind of the key. And I'm going to take a little bit of a stab here. This may not be 100% accurate, but if we create the loan documents within the 5-day period of time, we have complied with the spirit of what we're doing for the SBA. But I think every state may have a little bit of a different go back to work timeline. And the thing is, I'm a small business owner too, with my husband. And it doesn't make sense from my standpoint as a small business owner, when I have laid off all of my employees, to bring them back and pay them with borrowed money and have them be idle because my business is not open. And we have a lot of non-essential businesses. So just because we book the loan doesn't mean that we have to advance the money on the same day we book it. So I'm going to err a little bit here on the side of what I think is maybe some common sense and say that when that loan, the date the documents are generated and you sign the loan, that's the date of the loan. And chime in here, Linda, if I'm incorrect, but I think for any unforgiven part of this debt, the unforgiven piece needs to be repaid within 2 years from the date of the note, regardless of when it's dispersed. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that is my understanding as well. Mm-hmm.
So if it were me, I wouldn't advance the money for my client base until they were able to reopen their business and rehire their staff, because the interest starts accruing once you start dispersing the loan. If the loan is undispersed or not advanced, no interest is accruing. And that's important for the unforgiven piece, if there is any. Does that help?
Sure, I think so. And let's, we're going to go to another question from Rob Finch. He has 25 employees and they are working about 2/3 of their staff and are an essential business. Does he understand it correctly that he does not have to rehire all 25 employees immediately when he applies for the PPP to receive the loan. Oh, something just switched on my thing, sorry. Here it is. But does he need to have rehired them for an 8-week period during the second quarter? Is that correct? Do you want me to reread it?
Yeah, I
Okay,
would.
sorry about that.
It's
My
okay.
screen flipped on me. So it says he has 25 employees. We are working at about 2/3 staff and are an essential business. Do I understand correctly that I do not have to rehire all 25 immediately when I apply for it and receive the loan, but need to have rehired them for an 8-week period during the second quarter? Is that correct?
This is Linda. I believe that's correct, but I would like to follow up on that just to be sure. So if you can maybe send me that question or any
Sure.
questions that need to be looked at and get back to your group, that'd be great.
Absolutely, yes, we can do that. And there's another question that people have been asking about if they can include rent and 401k and utility payments in addition to the average payroll. Is that possible?
Utilities, lease payments, the mortgage interest, all of those are eligible uses of the proceeds. And again, the key here is keeping that piece.
Janie, I think the question is on the other side. I think where people are. Janie, are you there? This is
Yes.
Eric.
Yeah.
I think the question is what we've seen is some confusion about that question being related to what the loan amount will be. Can they include X, Y, and Z expenses as part of the calculation? And as you just explained, and as I understand it, the calculation is simply based on an average monthly payroll times 2.5. The proceed use is related to all of those expenses. So people are being confused about needing to supply us with P&Ls to determine what their utility bills are and expenses and those kinds of things. Is that correct? That I've stated that correctly?
You know, this is Linda. What I have found here, it says payroll cost consists of compensation to employees whose principal place of residence is in the United States in the form of salary, wages, commissions, or similar compensation, cash tips or equivalent based on employer records of past tips or in the absence of such records, a reasonable good faith employer estimate of such tips, payment for vacation, parental, family, medical, or sick leave, allowance for separation or dismissal, payment for the provision of employee benefits consisting of group health care coverage, including insurance premiums and retirement, payment of state and local taxes assessed on compensation of employees, and for an independent contractor or sole proprietor, wage, commissions, income, or net earnings from self-employment or other similar compensation. That's what's written up in the our treasury. So I don't know if that's off subject, but that's what it says.
To clarify the question, is the question about calculating the loan amount or the use of the proceeds?
It sounds like it's when they're calculating the loan amount.
Okay, so Eric is correct. When you go back to, it's a 2 times multiplier of the average payroll, average monthly payroll. And the thing is that because this is a Paycheck Protection Program, the SBA is assuming that the majority, 75% of that money will go for payroll purposes, as Linda indicated were allowable payroll uses. There's an allowance to take up to 25% of that loan and use it for those other operating expenses that include the interest on your loans that pre-existed and the utilities and the rent. You can use the money for that, but we don't take those dollar amounts and put them in as part of the loan amount calculation.
Right.
Okay, so I think we have time for one more question. This one is from Paul Hamill about payroll calculations. Bank of America indicates contractors should be included in this calculation. I've seen mixed messages on this. Should contractors be included?
Linda, didn't you just read that independent contractors?
It says, I just want to make sure I get this right here.
And I think the question is, are they mixing their regular staff and if they have contractors that are regularly used and paid for by the company? Is that in that overall calculation?
I believe that could be calculated, yes. As long as they're not, they don't have a, I think it's a 1099.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all. I know we're on our last 3 minutes. I know there were a number of questions on independent contractor questions, and we will be having another webinar next week specifically focused on those opportunities. So thank you to all our speakers today. We very much appreciate your time. Thank you to all our partners on the East Side who are working hard to support our business community during this pandemic. And thank you all for participating. Again, we will be sending a follow-up email with a link to the recording of this webinar and links to the resources that we were referenced. Next week, we'll be hosting another webinar for the independent contractors or gig workers, like we mentioned, around the programs that are available through the CARES Act, which include the Payment Protection Program and unemployment benefits. I also want to make sure that everybody has seen the governor's $5 million small business grant applications are now available. They just announced them yesterday afternoon. You can find all this information at the website on your screen. You can also get a link at our website, eastsiderecoveryhub.com, in the financial resources section. So thank you again, everyone. Please stay safe and healthy, and we'll probably hear you next time. Thanks.